Hello and welcome to another episode of Rico'S Rants. I am Rico. So, today we're going to be doing a very special episode. It's going to be longer than usual. I apologize. Most of my videos are long in general, but I just can't be vague or brief about this. And spoiler, most of my videos do kind of spoil the film in its own way, but this one I definitely have to say. Everyone's probably seen it at this point, but I will be talking about the franchise of this film as well as some theories, but I'm going to also be vague about it and not spoil it too much. These are just my own theories as well. So, the film today, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Alright, let's get down to it. First of all, I have to say, J.J. Abrams did something that George Lucas could not, which was give us a new hope. And that's a pun, but that's also a reference to the fact that a lot of people are complaining about how The Force Awakens is basically a remake of the original Star Wars or Episode 4, A New Hope, if you're that type of person. So, absolutely 100% loved this film. And I'm going to say why. I'm clearly a Star Wars fan. I've always, I think in a couple of videos I've talked about my love for Star Wars. Everyone grew up with Star Wars, even if they didn't see it or became a fan. It's part of history. It is a whole new type of mythology. It's a ripoff of other mythology and other religions. I think even Mark Hamill referred to it as a religion Neapolitan or something like that. And I'm not a religious person, but I would say that if I ever became a religious person in any type of universe, I would want to be a Jedi. I would love to just wield a lightsaber. Every kid, boy or girl, has pretended to wave a lightsaber or shoot a blaster or anything, or even just go. It's part of our jargon at this point. Luke, I am your father. That is just as historical as, I have a dream. It's really Star Wars to me was all about being alienated and then finding yourself and becoming great. Luke is a loner in the beginning. He's alone. He has some friends, but we never really ever see them. He lives on a fucking desert planet. Like, he's as alone as you could possibly be. And he longs for the future of being a pilot. He longs for, he hears stories and rumors about what his father was, and he doesn't really find the truth out until later in the film, and he starts his path to becoming a Jedi. Like, we all know this. I'm sort of repeating the history, but that's the whole point, is that this film does repeat the history. And it's not, I don't think it was lazy filmmaking by J.J. Abrams. I think it was brilliant in the sense that, look, George Lucas may have created Star Wars, and without him, there would be no Star Wars. But everyone can acknowledge that the prequels that he wrote and directed, were terrible. They, with the exception of the third one's pretty, fucking good. For some parts, I could have lived without General Grievous. I could have, Hayden Christensen's acting was not really the greatest, but the problem with George Lucas is he's never really relied on acting in his films. And you can look at the original trilogy based on that. With the exception of, Harrison Ford, there was not really great acting. And even then, he's just, sort of playing a variation of the old cowboy in the West type of thing. He's a scoundrel. He's the man with no name in space, but with a sense of humor. Luke is the good old boy. Leia is the you know, strong woman character who at the same time becomes a damsel in distress a couple times, but then overthrows it. It's not original in the sense that the story is unique, but but we've seen these type of characters before. We've seen redemption. We've seen wanting to become the father and then fighting the father. It's an old west samurai film kind of like mashup in space. That's what it's known for. But The Force Awakens is, personally, I prefer it over the original Star Wars. Let me just state that while I do love Star Wars: The Saga, I never really liked the Star Wars first movie, or the Episode 4, A New Hope. I'll just refer to it as A New Hope. It's kind of a boring film. Like, it's fantastic to watch for the first time, but Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi are far superior films, and that's including the Ewoks. I personally am a big fan of Return of the Jedi, in part because Luke gets a green lightsaber, and I'm a big fan of the color green. So, yes, there are tons of similarities between Force Awakens and A New Hope, but I'd rather have that than go through something like Attack of the Clones again, where there's no character development. There's no the dialogue is shit. It's just, it gave me hope for the Star Wars franchise. When I heard they were making a new one and Disney was doing it, I'm like, kind of like everyone else. I'm like, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm really, really, really worried. My fears are gone. I'm absolutely 100% back into Star Wars land. I've always been a fan, but I was like, oh Jesus, like, all right, let's be done. I don't need it anymore. So this film made me actually care about the characters, which I stopped caring about in the prequels. I mean, in retrospect, we all kind of knew what was going to happen in the prequels. We knew Anakin Skywalker was going to become Darth Vader. We knew that he and Obi-Wan were going to have a giant fight, and we knew that Luke and Leia were going to be born, and one of them was going to go. Leia was going to go to Bail Organa on Alderaan. Bye bye Alderaan, so to speak. So we knew what the first three films were basically going to be about, but we didn't know the filler. We didn't know all the characters. We knew nothing about like Count Dooku. We knew nothing about pod races. We knew nothing about Jar Jar, and I kind of wish that was the case. Even if that interesting theory about Jar Jar being like the Sith Lord, I mean, that would have been interesting. That would have been a complete fucking curveball, and I would have applauded Lucas, who would have shocked the fuck out of all of us, I assure you. But now it's like, well, that just sounds stupid. But it makes sense if you really think about it. I don't personally believe in that theory, but I've always kind of said, theories are fun. I kind of embrace most of them. And the one I'm going to talk about, and I will get to at some point, if I can keep my mind on track. I just got to keep going back to this. The characters that we do love in the original trilogy come back. Like, we have Han, we have Leia, and we have Luke, kind of. And again, spoiler, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, you're like the one person. My dad has seen the movie, and he's 80 and hates Star Wars. So, I mean, I'm going to stop saying spoilers. You really should have, learned at this point. So, it brings the old and it brings the new, and that's why this film works so well. I talked about the film Jurassic World with my friend Eric on I think it was like episode 2 or 3. 2. And a lot of what we talked about was that Jurassic Park was a big part of our childhood, and how Jurassic World bridged that childhood with our adult selves, and how we really reminisced, and it brought, our old memories and feelings and whatnot of, a franchise that we grew up with, and it made us want to rewatch it. I mean, I did rewatch the original trilogy. I rewatched all of them, if I'm being completely honest. I didn't focus as much on the prequels, but I did rewatch them. So it just, yeah, there's a bigger Death Star. Yeah, there's another desert planet. Yeah, there's a fucking villain who has rage problems with a red lightsaber. Yeah, Luke is in it, Han is in it, Leia's in it, but we have new interesting characters now. Admit it, Rey is a fucking interesting character. You were not expecting to like be rooting for her that much. Finn is great. Poe Dameron is great. Poe Dameron's kind of like the newer Han. Finn, I don't know where I would sort of place him. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't. It's not a complete, copy of the original. It does stay in the Star Wars world, but it's making new characters. It's making new interesting characters, like Kylo Ren. I mean, yeah, he's a whiny little shit, but he's interesting. I mean, he doesn't have the air of mysteriousness or mystery, I guess is the right word, that Vader had in the original trilogy, because we knew nothing about Vader. Vader stood there, had a deep booming voice, but most of the time was silent. I mean, he would force choke someone, and he didn't really have to say anything. It was just pure intimidation. Kylo talks a lot actually, screams a lot and whines a lot. Granted, he is a Skywalker. If you look at all the films, a lot of the Skywalkers were whiny bitches. Anakin was whiny through the entire prequel trilogy. Luke, I cannot stop I cannot forget but I was going to go to bed, to get some power converters. And, I love Mark Hamill, but that is a hard part in the film to get through without busting out laughing. I mean, it's a whiny gene, and maybe it's a sort of part of like being strong with the Force that you're going to be really whiny, but I'm interested. I think he's fascinating as a character because is he really a villain? Is he a double agent? Did the whole interaction between him and Han, who is his father, like was that pure rage? Was that him trying to finally turn to the dark side? Was that a way in to getting closer to President or Supreme President? I almost said President Screw from Spaceballs. Supreme Leader Snoke. That's a stupid name though. I'm sorry, but then again, there's fucking characters named Yoda, so go figure. Or Jar Jar. I've seen the film a number of times, but I'm still not going to be used to saying Snoke. It just sounds off. It's like I have autocorrect in my brain, be like, no, smoke, no, Snoke. I know I'm going all over. I apologize. It's such a good movie without being a classic, and that's why I do these. Is because I don't pick films that are classics. I pick films that I like and that I would recommend. Granted, this is not just a film that I could recommend. This is a phenomenon. Everyone saw this. I mean, literally everyone saw this. I mean, it is amazing. Just think about in the sense that we had a new Star Wars film, and it was good. I mean, there are a lot of people who didn't like it, and I understand their reasonings. It's always the same bitching about, like, oh, well, it's the same, plot. Yeah, there's a Death Star. Yeah, there's this. Yeah, there's that. But I'd rather have that than, have to deal with fucking trade federations and shit like that. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. And then I want to take those people that are bitching, and I want to slap them in the face and say, what are you complaining of? Like, what are you complaining about? We have Star Wars. It's a new Star Wars. Like, shut the fuck up. You dealt with the prequels, and you were fine with that? And here's the thing that I do have to stress. The diehard Star Wars fans are older than me. They're in their 30s and 40s, and in some cases even 50s, if not more. And yet when they saw it, they were kids, or they were, teenagers, or they were in their 20s or whatever. They enjoyed it because, one, in 1977, this was the biggest blockbuster apart from Jaws. But could happen. Star Wars can happen. I mean, Star Trek was around, but Star Trek, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but Star Trek is boring. It's really, really kind of boring, especially the first film. It's just really just, all right, we get it. Shoot a fucking Klingon or something. We get it. Like, dun, 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 dun. All right, we get it. Star Wars, like there's Star Trek, the trek through stars and to go where no man's gone before. And then there's Star Wars. I mean, wars and battles are exciting. That's why we go to the movies, to see shit that we don't really want to be part of. So, those people that saw those films when they were kids forget that they were kids. And that's why they hold it dear life. That's why they were bitching about Jar Jar. Like, Jar Jar makes sense. Like, Jar Jar is just a really dumbed down version of, like a combination of the goofy version of Yoda and Chewbacca. Like, he's the comedy relief. I hate to break it to you, and I hate to acknowledge it, but it is absolutely 100% true. George Lucas became rich overnight through, like, the licensing of the toys. He knew what the hell he was doing. He knew that, he didn't need to make money from the film. He wanted to make fucking toys. He made a Chewie. He made a fucking Yoda doll. He made a goddamn, Millennium Falcon model where no one even knew what the fuck a Millennium Falcon model was at the time. But everyone bought it. Guarantee everyone had a fucking little figure of Luke at one point. I did. Everyone knew the words Boba Fett without even really getting much screen time. I mean, he is another character that is just mysterious and awesome, but he probably has like maybe 10 minutes of screen time, if that, in the whole fucking trilogy. Not including the prequels, for the record. So, all those people that complain forget that this is for kids. There needs to be a comic relief. That's why BB-8 in The Force Awakens is so well loved. Because C-3PO sucks. R2-D2 is entertaining and, really was the cute robot. BB-8, you can hear what the voice actors were saying. Like, you can get a hint of what BB-8 is translating. There's a couple thing where there's a scene where like he says, "I'm alone," but it's like, and you're just like, he said, "I'm alone." Like, that. R2-D2, you can never fucking understand what he's saying unless he's just cursing the whole time. Sorry, let me fix that. So, I'm not bitter. I love being a Star Wars fan. I'm proud to be a Star Wars fan. I would wave a fucking lightsaber every day if I had one. A real one, at least. That's why I'm sick and tired of Star Wars fans saying this is not a Star Wars film. Yes, it is. It's part of the canon. I don't care what you say. Like, Han Solo got killed by his son. I said it. I spoiled it, but I said it. I said spoiler alert earlier, so you can't give me shit. And fucking Facebook ruined that shit anyways. I was lucky enough to have seen it opening night, but I would have lost my shit if someone ruined it for me. It's just a good film. It's... What would I have liked? I would have liked to see more Mark Hamill. I think they set it up perfectly for the next one, but it made me want to see more. I don't think he needed to say anything. Because what would he say at the end of that? The fact that he said nothing was just perfect. I mean, what could he say? Oh, hey, that's my lightsaber. Did you find a hand down there? Like, I really am craving for more information, which is something I didn't think I would have a feeling for again, because we knew everything up to the first 6 films. We knew the whole story of Anakin. That's the story of Star Wars, is Anakin and Luke. But more Anakin. I mean, really more about his journey of the rise of becoming a Jedi, the fall of becoming a Jedi, the rise of becoming a Sith Lord, and then the redemption and being reborn as a Jedi and bringing balance to the Force. That's the whole point. There's a lot of Jesus allegory in the prequels, and I'm going to get to that as well because, like I said, this was religion Neapolitan. One of the theories is that Rey. All right, let me talk about Rey before I get too sidetracked. Rey is a mysterious, female character. No one knows anything about her really, apart from that she is strong with the Force, and that she's basically been raised on a desert planet that's not Tatooine, but it's Jakku. But it might as well be Tatooine at this point. She scavenges for parts, trades them in for food. I mean, she is another allegory to Luke. I mean, just harder. She, is in poverty, basically. She lives by herself. She didn't have an Aunt Beru or an Uncle Owen. She was raised by Simon Pegg in a fucking costume, which is pretty cool, actually. But she also, like Luke, has that longing. I don't believe that she is Luke's daughter, which is the strong theory. And I don't think that she's Leia and Han's daughter. I don't think she's Kylo's sibling. I don't think she's a Kenobi. Some people were like, "Oh, well, she has a British accent, so she must be a Kenobi." I'm like, "There's no British accent. It's whatever fucking accent that is on the planet." Like, arguing with Star Wars fans, as much as I like doing it, can be really fucking difficult when you get down in the nitty gritty of it. Personally, and I thought of this before I even saw this online, so I'm clearly not the only person, but I did think of this. I think that Rey is the reincarnation or Rey incarnation of Anakin Skywalker. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that because a lot of people are trying to debunk that theory and rumor and everything, but it makes sense if you think about it. She's strong with the Force with very little training. She clearly has a connection with Kylo, who is a relative. When she touched the lightsaber, it definitely... What I interpreted that vision, which was cool to see, we had never really actually seen a Jedi vision. I think those were memories that she was having of Vader and Anakin, because it shows Bespin, and it was sort of molded in with the possible future of what it could be. What Yoda always say, the clouded the future is, so the future could always change at any time. It's all about choice. So, I think because clones are okay in Star Wars, but reincarnation is weird. Like, again, I'm not a believer in it, but I think it would fit well to the story. She has that. The title alone sort of alludes to it. The Force awoke. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the light side or the dark side. It's just the Force. There's the good and the bad. It's one whole thing. And I don't know what woke it up. Oh, I guess maybe touching the lightsaber kind of sparked it. Maybe that's all it took. It was sort of an Excalibur moment, which has been an allegory for the Star Wars universe as well. The old wizard, the young knight, that kind of shit. Rey is an interesting character. Far more interesting to me than Leia. And Leia was... I don't know if it was Carrie Fisher, or if it was just I never really cared about Princess Leia, but I wasn't cheering when she came on screen. I was just kind of like, okay, she's there. Cool. Like, and? I was interested to see her relationship with Han, but I didn't give as much of a shit. And Han was great. I mean, Harrison Ford shines. He is back to his roots. I mean, this was the film that brought him to stardom. That and Indiana Jones, when you could argue that Indiana Jones is just another side of Han Solo, or they're both sides of Harrison Ford. I mean, from what I hear about him, he's pretty similar to both of them. So, Ray, I loved as a character. Finn, I loved as a character because he did something that we've never seen before, which was we were interested in what goes on in a stormtrooper's mind. We've never had that. Stormtroopers are always just sort of regarded as like, the troops that miss at everything. But in these ones, they're pretty accurate, shooters. They got a lot of training. But we're always kind of curious, like, what do stormtroopers look like underneath? Apart from like the clones in the prequels, we have no fucking idea. We finally get to see one. And there's a lot of bullshit about how he was black. It's like, fucking grow up. Like there's been black people in fucking Star Wars forever. Darth Vader is voiced by James Earl Jones, and he's got one of the best voices ever. I mean, he is a talented actor. It's mind blowing that we are in 2016 and we're bitching about a black actor playing a character in Star Wars. We're bitching, not me, not personally, but the people are bitching about a female main character in a Star Wars film, a black main character in a Star Wars film. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's Star Wars. Like, who gives a fuck? You're okay with a giant slug named Jabba the Hutt, but you have a problem with a black guy? Like, it's bananas, man. It makes no fucking sense to me. It makes sense that there's racist, fucking misogynistic people out there, but Jesus, like, Star Wars is supposed to bring the good out of people, not the hatred. I mean, fucking get away from the dark side, motherfucker. Like, go towards the light. So, I was entertained through the whole thing. There was never a moment where I'm just like, all right, let's get this going. Like, J.J. Abrams is a fucking visionary, and I've never seen an episode of Lost. I've never seen a single episode of Alias. I thought he made Star Trek interesting for me, so I give him credit. I mean, I saw Cloverfield. I thought that was a fantastic film. I mean, he clearly is a fan, and that's why I was talking about Jurassic World earlier. Is that Jurassic World is directed by a fan? That's what we love about these new films, is that it's directed by people that actually give a shit about the fan base and the story and the characters. I mean, back to Kylo, he is an interesting character because he does have that rage and he does have that angst. I mean, it makes sense when you're. I mean, if you believe this in the Jedi Sith lore, they're basically loners, especially the Sith. The Sith, it's a master and an apprentice, and that's it. So he is basically alone, and he was, he came from presumably a loving family. He had Han, he had Leia, he had his uncle Luke, who was training him to become a Jedi. He had it all, and he was seduced, and that's the story. That's what happens in every Star Wars film. Someone was seduced to the dark side. But I personally think that I think that he might be a double agent, personally. If you rewatch that scene where he kills his fucking dad, it's almost like Han knows it's gonna happen, and he's okay with it. He's willing to sacrifice himself to help his son, which is what I would imagine every father is willing to do. Every father who cares about their child is willing to die for them to make them better and to make them stronger. They all say, I would die for my kids. He proved it. He's dad of the year. Yeah, it sucks, but it goes with the character. I mean, it's one thing to fight your father, it's another thing to willingly sacrifice your father. And you're both sort of in on it. It's sort of a, assisted suicide in a fucked up way. And I think he's doing that to get closer to Snoke. Almost fucked it up, Snoke. But then I don't know. and that's what I'm trying to stress is that I want to know. I'm excited. I'm excited for the new one that they're making, Rogue One. Like, and I at first I was like, I don't really care. Like, okay, yeah, it's set what, a year or 10 years or something before fucking episode four. Like, I could give less of a fuck. I saw episode four. That's all I need. I don't need to see how the Death Star is being built. But after that trailer and after this new film, I was like, all right, give me everything about Star Wars. I would actually, as crazy as it is, I would love to see an Obi-Wan Kenobi solo film, and I want that. I really think they should bring back Darth Maul, because if you believe it, if you read the expanding universe or whatever, Maul survives the bisection, and he like keeps himself alive through just sheer hatred, and he has a lot of revenge on his mind. And there's this great like comic where Darth Maul like attacks Luke when he's a kid, and Obi Wan comes out of nowhere, and Obi Wan's like been watching Luke from a distance and like always protecting him, always been aware of him, and they get into a big giant fight, and then like right when it's like about to turn towards Maul or something, um, Luke's Uncle Owen just snipes him out with a fucking rifle, a blaster rifle. Just I'd like to see that, and Ray Park was phenomenal as Darth Maul, and they should bring him back. I like this film. It again. I've been gushing about it for 30 minutes, but it's just so good. It's Chewie is back. I mean, we had Han, we have Luke, we have new interesting characters. I personally I was super into the idea of the cross guard lightsaber that Kylo has. I thought it was different. It looked like an old, it looked like a Braveheart, sword. I mean, it was just badass. I mean, he came off as a knight, and he's known as a member of the Knights of Ren, which we're still kind of not truly aware of. And I liked that it was crackly. It wasn't like a lightsaber, and it goes with the character. He's damaged. He's cracked. He didn't want to kill his father. I'm sure. He's just a lost kid who was just sort of. Let me compare it this way. If you've ever seen the movie American History X, that's what I think of when I think of Kylo Ren's character. American History X is another great film where, a kid who looked up to in this case, brother, but you could also argue father figure, who was in the dark side. He was a Nazi. I mean, look, you don't have to dig too deep to realize that the dark side, the empire, the you know, whatever is an allegory to Hitler and Nazism. That's basically what it is. They even fucking salute, like in Star Wars: The Force Awakens, like this clearly Nazi-like character is ranting and screaming like Hitler, and then all the stormtroopers just go like that to him. Like it's blatant. It was always hinted and alluded to, but it's blatant. I like that. Show what it is. I don't need to dissect a scene. I want to think about it. But I also like it when they just say, "There it is." You know, Hitler, Vader, very similar people. Which I'm not saying. I'm just saying that it's very similar. In American History X, the character's younger brother looks up to him and becomes a Nazi, becomes a neo-Nazi, and then realizes that it's wrong. It was not. He was just brainwashed. That's all it is. So is Kylo. Kylo was just a lost kid looking for a father. Maybe Han, gave him a too much of a stern talking to. I mean, Anakin didn't have a father. Luke didn't have a father. That's why they gravitate to these people like Obi-Wan or the Emperor or Yoda. They need that paternal bond. Kylo or Ben Solo had that father figure but rejected him because he Snoke just sounded more appealing. And I will give credit, like, I've always been a big fan of Andy Serkis in general. He made me actually be able to watch the Lord of the Rings. Like, otherwise I was just out of my element. I'm like, I can't, I don't understand what the fuck is going on. But Andy Serkis is great. He was kind of, I mean, I'm sure they're going to use him more in the next ones, but I was interested in his character, but I was just like, okay, I don't know. They can't reveal too much, I guess, but he was good. I mean, again, I have no complaints about the film, which is why I'm stressing that this film is just a fantastic fucking movie. And I've been talking way too long, but I did warn you this is going to go for a while, so I'm probably going to end it pretty soon, though, because it's hard for me to keep track of what I've said and what I am saying. It's just interesting. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. He gave us a new hope, and I'm astounded that people are actually like petitioning to get Colin Trevorrow, who directed Jurassic World, to not direct Episode 9, and they want George Lucas to come back. And I was like, did you see the fucking prequels? Did you see the first Star Wars? Like, it's just, he's not a good filmmaker. He never really was. I mean, he was an innovative filmmaker in the beginning, but he's just, he's all theatrics. He's not into structure or dialogue. I mean, his dialogue is just bad. Alec Guinness said that the dialogue was the worst thing he's ever read. He didn't understand anything that he was saying. And not that he would, it was mostly made up, but that's gotta mean something. Like, if a trained veteran, classically trained actor says your dialogue is shit, you might want to rewrite some fucking lines, man. Scruffy looking nerf herder is a catchy line, but it makes absolutely no fucking sense to an old British guy. I want more. I want more of these characters. I want more of Finn. I want more of Rey. I want more of Poe. Although Poe, I always kind of, I mean, yeah, he was funny and he was interesting and he was a great character, but he was sort of my weaker link. I'm less interested in him than I am in, you know, Finn. Because, again, we had no idea what a Stormtrooper's thinking. Now we do. Maybe they don't all like to fucking, shoot people. Maybe they all have, bad, thoughts of it. Okay, I will say something. One thing I didn't like. There's a character named Captain Phasma. And she is a Chrome Trooper, and she's played by Gwendolyn Christie, I think. The big, tall chick from Game of Thrones. In all the trailers, they show her, like, it's just like this looming presence, sort of like our new Boba Fett, like this mysterious, like, who the fuck is that? Drastically underused. And I know they're going to bring her back, so that's why they sort of underused her. But maybe give her more than just a couple lines, just another scene, a little bit more. I would have been more satisfied. But again, that it makes me want to see more. It makes me have that craving. It's like I had a sample and I'm just ready for the fucking, like, buffet. I kind of wish that, like, I could hibernate for 5 years or something and wake up and all the new Star Wars movies have come out, all the spin-off ones, all the episodes, and I just fucking have a marathon and be like, oh my god. Kind of like how it was for when I watched the original trilogy, because the original trilogy had already come out before I was born. So I was able to sit down and watch them all and be like, this is fucking brilliant. And then the prequels came out, I'm like, this is fucking garbage. So I'm going to end the video because I really should. I'm going on 40 minutes now, so I apologize if you get through these. I don't intend to go this long, but I don't know. See Star Wars The Force Awakens. Tell me if I was at least on the right spectrum with my theories. If you agree with him. If you don't agree with him, that's fine. That's why they're called theories. It's I don't know. Did you like the video? I will try to go shorter next time. Um, Here's my cat. I think he just ruined my ending. Lovely.